This is a cool question, Coach Drew. How did you get into content coaching? So I've always had a love for sharing information, and I've always had a love for sharing information in a way where I could make it simple. So since I did sports, taught fitness, Bible studies, wherever I taught, whatever I coached, I always wanted to make information simple for people. And I think that came from me having to learn in various ways. I always said I wasn't the fastest learner, but when I learned something, I could teach it. In a lot of my ways that I figured out that helped me learn was to actually teach what little bit I did know. So it would look as if I knew how to make a carousel, if I learned it in one day, I wanted to teach it. I wanted to teach it the next day because I found out that helped me. How I ended up just becoming a content coach, I literally just took on the role of this is my role. I'm going to actually do this. I study content consistently. I've studied it. I've taken certifications in other coaching industries, which all had content in it. So I told myself I'm going to become a content coach. Now, the difference between content coaching and just content creation is coaching is more so consulting and showing someone how they should do something, where they should put the information, how much. It's not so much in the designing the graphics and things like that. That's more so of a creator. Do I know how to do some of that stuff? Absolutely. But that's not my role. My role is for working with a coach or a company that needs to ignite that fire all over again and get their customers' eyes on them. So the coaching aspect is breaking the barriers of doing it the way everyone else does it, overcoming the fear of why they are even doing this, and overcoming the fear of being somewhat transparent and real. We live in a world where social media depicts only perfect people, and when that's always depicted, I think people start to just stare away. So with my coaching, I'm always telling people be your authentic self. But how I got into it was literally, if you've watched anything I've put out over the years, maybe since 2010, I was always promoting how to do something, what to do, no matter what field I was in. So that's really how I became a content coach. One day I decided I was going to not let the fear of what everybody else was doing as a content creator and coach stare me away, because the number one thing that people come to me for is honestly advice with content. Even people who knew me for fitness, the number one thing they would come to me for was how do I make videos, content, and things like that. Now, for the rest of the episode, why do I do it the way I do it now? So, if you asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said, just to become known and things like that. I do it now because I realize it's a lane that, as crowded as the lane gets, people are always going to want to work with people who they like and they trust. But as crowded as the lane gets, it's going to always be needed. And content creation isn't new. So for people who think this is like a new thing, it's not new. It's been around for decades. As soon as TV came out or the newspaper, that's content. How we do it now is a little bit quicker because we can upload something online, it can go viral, or we can just share messages a lot easier. But content creation has been around for decades and years. So it's not new. And if you understand that, you understand there is no business success without content. There is no business without content. You need to have it. You have to have it. With me now doing it older, I recognize that most people who are older than me have great businesses, but they're going to pivot. they don't know how to pivot because they're staying away from social media and things that could actually help them. They're staring away from it because they don't know how to do it and they're going to get drowned. So I come in where showing them, hey, you don't have to dance on TikTok, but you got to post something somewhere and you got to do that consistently. So what they usually do is they either hire me to do all the content for them or they have somebody on their staff become the go-to person to do it. But that generation before me, I don't know what the generation is named, baby boomers, I don't know. That generation needs it more because they have all of the wisdom, they have the ideas, they have built so much trust, but they're not seen as much. And if they're not seen, they cannot stay in business for long. And our whole goal is to get them to stay in business. So with them, we talk with them. We help them to understand it's not just going viral. It's more so letting your customers know that you're still in the game, that you're relevant, that you have things to offer. And with doing that, they understand that it's not new. They've been doing content, reading content since the newspapers. Remember back in the day where like you had to go to a corner to get a newspaper. You had to pay somebody maybe 25 cents to get a newspaper, and that person was sitting on a corner, on a stoop, whatever, selling newspapers. That's content. It was the way it is. There was no other way at that time. Or we've all turned on the news. The news is full of content. They're giving you bite-sized information. They're giving you headlines. They're giving you hooks. They're giving you stories that make you stop. Most people, when you go past the news, you stop and you're listening, even if you don't know what they're talking about. So with that generation, I love working with them to help them understand how to keep their business alive. The younger generation, sometimes it's easier because they know content is where it's at. They may not understand that outside of the hype, you actually need good content to elevate your business and your brand, whether that be a personal brand or it can be just the company you work for or you own. You need it. Now, the advice I would give anybody who's lost when it comes to any of this stuff is first go to any of my YouTube videos or my podcast. You can see the loads of how to do this, how to do that. But the first thing I would say is just clarify who you're trying to talk to. If you're trying to talk to an 18-year-old, they may be on TikTok. They're not going to necessarily be on LinkedIn usually. If you're talking to an older generation, go to Facebook, go to LinkedIn. If you're not sure who you're talking to, ask yourself who usually asks you the most questions and what age group. The age group that usually asks me the most questions are usually 30 and up. So most of my stuff is on Instagram, more so Facebook, not as much TikTok, and it works because that's where they're at. So I would say think about who's your audience, who's asking you the most questions, and then the second thing I would say is where are they at? Look and see what platform that they're on. Are they on Instagram? Are they on TikTok? Are they on um, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, whatever it's called now, Threads? Look and see where they're at and go there. Put some content there. It's always good to go where the audience is at versus always trying to go and make your audience. Just go where they're at. It's the same thing like reinventing the wheel. Instead of always aiming to reinvent the wheel, use what works and just add your spin to it. So this was the episode. It was not planned. I usually do my episodes early in the morning, but my little baby girl was in my room with me and she fell asleep as I was setting something up. And I said, let me just use this time because it usually doesn't happen. So this is how I became a content coach. I made the decision. No, I did not go to school and say, make me a content coach. I did it. I got results. I got people results. And that's where it left me. If you would love to work with me individually or some of my group courses and trainings, feel free to hit me up on Instagram at Coach Drew Cost. My website is www.drewcost.com, and we'd be happy to help you overcome the fear of making videos. Get unstuck with your content and actually go make content that makes your customers come to you. Get unstuck, guys. Be good.